Hello friends, today's topic is UI text field. I want to say right away that this topic is small, but I can tell a lot about it. Before we begin, I will show the UI view scheme according to our old tradition. It's very important, friends. We see that this position is UI text field. Let's see. We know that everything that inherits from an S object, then there is such class UI responder. This class is responsible for processing on the screen. Next comes UI view. From it goes UI control. From it go all actions. In addition to outlets, we can still use actions thanks to UI control. And you see, we have UI text field here. We will work with UI control and with UI responder. Let's move on to our project. Let's create it. And from our old tradition, let's start with the storyboard. There is a view controller. We have a text field. Here it is with one. This is a new element for us. We used it a little, but didn't pass any detail. And let's transfer it to the view controller, expand it, duplicate. Next, let's create a button. All lesson where you don't look in this topic of UI text field, people do authorization. Let's write enter. I will tell you that not only for authorization we need text field, any capture or display of text, editing. The only drawback is that it expands horizontally and only one position, and higher cannot become vertical. Some people use the alternative text view, which we take in the next lesson, but for now let's talk about text field. Pay attention to the attribute inspector. There is some text here. We can enter here, and it's immediately located on the left edge, and we can put it in the center. And pay attention to its properties. There is font, color, which we can change. It is everywhere. There is also a placeholder. It disappears when you click on the text field. This is done so that the user understands that you need to enter text here. Let's run the simulator so as not to waste our time. You see, this we also went through dynamic type in the last lesson, which tries to position our text so that it fits. Also, you can put an image, also specify a border or completely remove it. It's customary to use such a view. Okay, let's click on the text field. The keyboard appears, disappears placeholder. We cannot remove the keyboard because not yet programmed. Nothing works yet. Okay. Also, there is a clear button property. This is a cross appears here, which helps us to clear the content. Let's choose while editing. And let's run it once again. Something written, and on this cross have cleared the field. Also we see adjust to fit request, then there is content type. We can choose the type of keyboard for our content. The next field is capitalized. Each word will be written with a capital letter and the type of these settings. We can choose from this list. And next comes the autocomplete. Yes or no. You can see it for yourself, friends. Friends, if we assume we enter here some name, meaning we put default. If we have fields for email, choose this type. Let's see. We will experiment. We press. Here we already have the add on the keyboard. This sign was added, and if we select the number type, then only the digits will be on keyboard. We place our text in a vertical or horizontal direction. Also the selection is removed, etc. Next we can specify the tag. If text field with the tag number 3, then do something. And if you uncheck user interaction enabled, it will not be available for use. Okay, let's see it, how it works. You see, here we can write, but not here. Actually, I use it very often in my project, but I remove it in the code. In principle, that's all. You could finish the lesson. There is nothing to show especially for this element. Let's change the format. In addition to using ready-made elements, try to swallow chute. Let's write this in the code. What does it mean that programmers don't know all by heart, but how do they get out of situation in programming? They cannot always go to YouTube and watch lessons on every topic. In principle, it happens unfortunately sometimes, but guys who have experience, they read the documentation. Apple is creator of this language and they know best what method it is responsible for. We write a text field as we have a text field theme. Look at the query result and see that where developer Apple is written, which is exactly the documentation from Apple, which is best shown and told about this class. You see, it's a lot of information. Also try to choose with this word Swift and see the result. We open the documentation. Many of you, I think, were here, tried to understand this, and somehow it became incomprehensible. It happens. I will show you again how you can get out of a situation. Maybe this is not a good practice, but at least it will help you in the near future. We are opening Google Chrome, and set the translation to your native language. It's much better if you have problems with English. What is text field? We see that this is an object that displays an editable text area in your interface. You can read and see that there are delegates. Here is written firstly, assign a delegate object for solving important tasks such as what delegates do text field. This is the definition of whether the user is allowed to edit the content, text checking, etc. All these can be read here, very comfortable, displaying and hiding the keyboard. Here it's directly told what, how, where, how it's removed and how responder is assigned. What's happening, you can even go and read how it looks. Let's see it. And we see that it asks UIKit to make this object the first respondent in its window. If we return to our text field, we see the section setting the appearance of the keyboard. You can remake your keyboard. Next, we see reply to notification. I advise everyone to read what it is. Those who understand, I will not explain. Those who heard a little but don't know what is happening, we have protocols and also have templates. Here the template is called the delegate. A delegate is when the entity delegates authority to another. You can say how they work one-to-one. It's very important to understand, and in this lesson I will show you how it works. Okay. And next, notification center is a thing that works in one-to-many mode. If you imagine a radio and very many listeners, I say I lead this lesson alone, but many people listen to me, the person who creates notification, and you subscribe to it. You can subscribe to certain events for a particular key. Apple says that they have prepared special notification for certain events for you. If you subscribe, you will be able to respond to events. Here you can adjust the position of the text field when the keyboard appears. What you can do, how it's done, how to format text, you can go here and read about it. Also, we see code examples and it given to us. All this is clear and understandable. As for me, it's very convenient. Let me show you. Let's go into the code of our program, so it's not an empty chatter. From my part, I will show it. We are creating my text field, constant. Also, I want to warn you that in every programming language isn't welcome when you invent your own style. This is a common style that other programmers are able to understand. If you want to pass the interview well, cope with the tasks, and that you are invited to work, don't insert such things into the title. Only style, camel case, and at the end write the type of the element and the name with the element that you name. Let's move on to the UI text field class, and here we see that there are created enums. It's common enums. Next comes the name of the class itself, which inherits from UI control, followed by certain delegates method. Own properties and methods are also indicated here. Text, font, border style, all that I just showed you in storyboard. All this is here. There are a lot of methods. Methods have already gone below. Next are extension from UI view we take to close the keyboard if we do nothing. Next is a delegate protocol, and it indicates the methods. Also there is an extension notification. This is the structure in the class in order to use notification. Okay guys, but how can I understand this? We went in, for us it's a new class. For this I encourage you to read the documentation and see, for example, text color. Look, this is the text color of the text field. To set the attribute programmatically, use the text color property. Everything in this class is described here. Come and read and don't get scared. All that you see here, we go in and just use it. We can look also at access to test attributes. For example, the text attribute is text, displayed by the text field, all clear. After every lesson, I recommend you go and read and then use it. Then you will come to experience and understanding. Okay, let's not worry much. We'll set up our text field. Now create a frame for it, as it will be rendered via cdirect. We put it in the center, make it 200 by 31. There's no point in doing it. It will allow you to set the height, but will not display it. Let's take the initializer with frame, and in our initializer we put our text field frame. Next, take the text field. It has a border style, about which I spoke earlier. If you forgot, press Option and read again. All clear. Okay. Next, we take the class UI text border style, and through the dot we call rounded rect. Let's do the alignment of the text vertically with content vertical. We turn to this class. Okay, and here it's written as it should be. See? Okay, where is it? Sorry guys. Yes, and choose center. Next, let's text align horizontally. We select text field and align it through the dot and right center. Next, set it placeholder. If you remember what it is, we'll write I'm a Swift developer. Next, arrange the text field itself in the center by specifying self-view center. Now take the view and edit via add subview. Self my text field. Let's start and see what happened. I see Xcode swears at us. It requires you to specify var. Friends, it's my habit to set by default let. It's a habit and really convenient one. Okay, we see that placeholder is set, everything is centered, we are writing to it, but we have nothing more to work on and nothing happens. We have a dead text field, and I think it's not interesting. And to add logic, the delegate will help us in this. Let's type UI text field delegate. We press Option and look at this. You see at the bottom, as always, a protocol is created, and see how much everything. There is a lot of methods, properties, and we see at the bottom, as always, a protocol is created, and see these methods. Let's get it and I'll work it out so that we understand this class. We put mark and type UI text field delegate. Let's all we have here and remove unnecessary. It will be our usual methods. Also, we don't need comments. Delete one. Friends, I recommend you don't be lazy and after lesson work it all out to understand what it is and where use is good. But to take and use it with your eyes closed. Practice will only help. Because you can read and watch as much as you want, but this should be repeated on your own experiment, and in this way you will understand and remember very well. Okay, let's delete this one, delete comment. Okay, and the last. Okay, all this we did, all created. This class subscribed to the delegate, but it still doesn't say that this will work. You see how many things are written, we will be confused with you. For this, we put things in order, create mark, and create the create text field method. and transfer it all to the new method. This method will now be called here. As I said, we created a text field. My text field, it has a delegate property. We have already passed it and subscribe. We say that this text field agrees to perform all these methods. It shows us an error because it wants to return the bool value. Return until true. The documentation will say yes, but don't worry. In Objective-C there is yes, there is no. In Swift only true and false. Also here we set return true. Let's copy and paste into the following methods. And here. If you run, then will not be very clear. Therefore, I recommend doing the following. We will imagine that we have a team. We have a text field and we hired a team that will serve the text field. Suppose we have an earphone of some kind and everything method of the delegate. This is every person who is specifically watching something. For nothing more, only one. And he will report to the console that it's it and some other message. And let's add this is my decision whether I can edit the field. This is decided by the delegates method. Here we return a boolean value that tells text field whether the user can edit its contents. If we return false, the user will not able to do anything. We cannot change the text. Also, we cannot prohibit everyone, for example, but certain. Let's say the text field that comes when we click on the text field, the delegate method is triggered, and here the already defined text field is the one we clicked on. Suppose we need to disable the first text field and the second one can be edited. Then we say if this text field is equal to my text field, then we allow editing. Otherwise, we return false. This is an example for understanding that you can write whatever you want. Whatever you want. I will clean it. We don't need it now. In order not to delay the time, the next method will have this name, and it says attention, editing started. Good. It works when you start editing the text field. Here you can also do anything, report as we need. The next field in us returns a boolean value. The current editing act is finished or not. This method is run before the user is about to leave the text field, finishes editing and tries to leave. Or after the status of the active object from one field, we go to the next. From one responder, we proceed to the next. If you return false, then when you click on return, we cannot go to the next field, and our keyboard in program will remain open. It will not hide. Let's add here the inscription. Attention, editing is over. Let's go on and see what we have. Here we have it. Editing is also over. Let's do it. Okay. We will not touch it now. It has about the same functionality as the previous one. Okay. Give it a name and see when it will work. What next? With one. Only name. This method reacts when we write a letter. Let's add a name to print this method and add the line you have entered. A certain letter and add the variable string through interpolation. Then when we enter some letters, it will tell us what was introduced. Okay. Let's copy, paste. The following method will work when we try to clear the text field. Let's add a description. You clear it. Something. At this moment, it will know about our actions. Of course, you can add another logic, but if you don't allow it to be erased via return false, then the user will unfortunately negatively treat your program. It's not allowed to enter something. And last but not least, it knows that we want to remove the keyboard or go somewhere else. At the line, do you want to remove the keyboard? And at the same time, let's try. We say that if the text field that came equal to our text field, if a person presses the done or return button, then this method will work, and if this is really the first text field and not the second or third, then I want it to take the responsibility and remove the keyboard. Who doesn't understand, there are still things like self text field become first responder. Let's choose it. And the difference is even visible in writing in methods. Resign it freed from responsibility, become assumes responsibility. Let's see what resign is. we see that it's released. Removes responsibility and removes responsibility. And the text itself is no longer interesting to it. And here it becomes observer. We need not to point, but to remove. Let's delete this line, run our program, see how much everything was written. All this needs to be worked out. Even if this is read verbatim, it becomes clear, for example, that this refers to the text field and reacts to return and gives some answer. Either something is connected with changing the symbols. You see, I started the editing, and we see in the console I decide whether I can edit. The very first method worked. He allowed us to edit. If there was false, we certainly couldn't get here. Next, we see, attention, the editing began. We were told about this by text field did begin editing. It tells us that editing has begun. Next, let's write hello. And the console shows that I entered some characters. Let's try to remove this all. When we press return, it takes away responsibility, removes the keyboard and the method of reporting. We see, do we want to remove the keyboard? In the end, the did and editing method still works. So it works here. Here you can apply different logic, here you can sort out the characters, for example, and so on. Here is validation on the correspondence of writing email, etc. In this method you can do it. Anything you can lay down, depends on your imagination, I would say so. Also, it's possible, for example, when the view did load and our first text field are triggered, then by default the keyboard is already displayed in order to tell the user about data entry, and it entered into the first text field. You see, the application has loaded and immediately prompts you to enter. This is the main functionality for beginners, what and how it works, etc. Again, see, the delegate method is very good if we work in the class. Suppose for some problems we need to create another class, and that in this class too something has reacted, something happened, etc. Let's me remove all this, so long that it doesn't interfere with me and you. To do this, came up with notifications. They, like I said, are installed in one place. We will see the class is one, and we go down below. We see NS notification. There are a lot of them in different classes for all occasions. Let's take this one. We see that text field did change, and it reacts after some changes. This is the beginning of editing, this is after editing. Take the last one and just try to work with it. Here we will add mark notification. There are e-notification patterns, read about it additionally. Let's create some method for the selector. Add obj func, and it will look like notification by name, only without the prefix. And we add the NC parameter of type NSNotification to the attribute of our method. Inside we add print. It will catch these changes and display the name notification. And the value of the incoming parameter in the console, also through interpolation. Next, we need to subscribe to the existing notification. If we created something ourselves, then in one class we would have to create and other controllers to subscribe and react to some events. Something came from outside code, anything, it's written this way. Enter notification center and choose default. You can then look in the documentation and read more. When we create, we write post. Also, we can remove observers. To work with them, choose one that has a selector. This one. And it says who is responsible, who is the observer. We say that this is self, this class. We write selector. This we have done many times. We say that selector is this method. Okay. Next is the name. If we create notification ourselves, we must create one constant. The one who sends and who receives should have the same key, such as wave on a radio station. Someone creates on one frequency and the others set up receivers for this frequency and listen to it. It's the same here, press twice and set the dot. And we see how many methods here, and we are interested in UI text field text did change. This one. Objects can be transferred, but now we will not do this. We have a different task so far. Good, friends. Let's run and see. We wrote all this, but how does it work? Set the breakpoint. We call the input via the keyboard and write something. Write H, and we are triggered. The observer caught the wave, and the Swift informed it that some changes had occurred. Let's remove the breakpoint, and it will write to us all parameters in the console. What kind of object is it? Its memory address, its frame, what text we wrote. We see the letter H, all the essentials are here. Okay, next I will show you how to work with the keyboard. Friends, this is a very popular topic. If suddenly the keyboard obscures the element, the text field is below and the keyboard obscures it. The most common option is now let's delete the previous version with notification. We remove the subscription to notification. In the documentation we saw that notifications are sent when the keyboard disappears or appears. Let's subscribe with time to another method. For this we specify the name UI keyboard will show. No object will be transferred here. There are no queues so far. We don't work with threads yet. In the end we have a closure. If anyone doesn't understand why we use it, here it's applied. We press twice. Closure passes one object, and here we enter logic. When the keyboard appears, we take the view frame via self. This is the frame of the device, and it has an origin property. This one. See? It's a CG point type. Origin is located here. It's based on Y and X. It's based on the coordinate reference system. We say that it changed to -200, and let's do the same and subscribe to notification. It's better to subscribe to it in the view did load. You can also define it in a method, and the method only call in view did load. In other places the subscription will not work properly. Xcode doesn't like something. Of course we take Y from the origin. We are interested in raising our view only by Y. We will not move X over. This is probably very incomprehensible and scary looking, friends. I will tell you, this is very simple. There are other options. I now show you one of them. And we took origin, which goes by Y. Click. And nothing happens. Let's try to start it again. Yes, nothing happened, because here we don't have the UI keyboard will hide method. Yes, this one. Let's run. Also, when you copy paste, it's also errors occurs. We push, shifted the text field up, entered the text, and the keyboard was supposed to be removed, but we removed the delegate. Let's edit again with one, and in it, if you have not forgotten what we are talking about, we will run assign first responder and specify return true. Good. Friends, I'm sorry that I took so much time, but this amount of information had to be learned and explained to the fullest. We write hello, press return, the keyboard is removed and the text field is returned to the starting position. Okay, thank you very much. That's all for now, friends. Until next lesson. Hello friends, we continue to study UI Kit. Today's topic is UI Text to You. Let's open the UI Kit hierarchy and see what place the UI Text to You takes. Here we see the UI Text view. It inherits from the UI Scroll view, which in turn inherits from UI Control. All elements that inherit from UI Control have an addition to outlets, also action. UI Text View doesn't inherit directly from UI Control and doesn't have action and outlets. We can only change its properties and the delegate. Let's move on to the project, create a new project. I suggest immediately go to storyboard. Here I will show you such an element. In the last lesson we studied UI text field, which suit us if we work with only one line. But if we need text with a lot of lines, then we need to use an element such as UI text view. Let's move it to the screen. You see that it contains many different lines in himself. We can stretch it as we need, hold Option and copy the second element. Here, for example, you can set the color to white and make the background red, for example. You can also play with the keyboards. UI text view has almost the same thing as text field. We can remove from it the division, editing, etc. So it's compressed dynamically by the content. In principle, it's very similar to the element from the previous lesson. Let's delete it all. I suggest first to go into the documentation, as in the last lesson. We will continue to study with you. We enter type into the search engine UI text view. Let's move on to Chrome. Okay, open Google Chrome. And we see in the documentation that UI text view is a scrolling multi-line text area that has a scroll view. This text can also be scrolled. You can also read a review of what it is that it supports with section on managing the keyboard, and we see it has reassign first responder, like UI text field. We first assign a responder, then select it. There are also notifications. We see what kind of initializers it has. Two kinds of initializer. There is an answer to the change. We see that it has a delegate. Please read in detail about the protocol. Next is a setting of attributes. This is color, font, etc. Quite a lot. This class isn't small, friends. Next comes to the selection. You can select the text and work with it. Here we see the logical value. The text is selected or not. In principle, everything you need. Containers, notifications, everything in principle with what we worked with the previous element. I suggest that you work through all this. Be sure to read the documentation, and as a bonus, I want to show you that for more information on how to save and restore states. There is a guide for programming an application for iOS. This must-have. This is must-have, of course. You must know this by heart. This affects not only this lesson, but in general all the specifics of development for iOS. Don't necessarily read smart books and try to find very useful things. Everything is in the documentation. There is such a small guide, where is written about the architecture of the application. Here you have a life cycle. You can see how it works. See what your application is, what should be included in the model, how view is displayed. There is a view and it has more elements. Also, what is included in the controller. I recommend you read it all. No book will replace it. What is written here. Okay, next we see how the touch processing on the screen takes place, as the application behaves in the active state, as it passes into the background and returns back. You can read about all the method in app delegate. This is very important information. Also, we can see how is application completely built. Also, there is a short implementation of VoIP. It's an IP telephony, WhatsApp or Telegram. Here it's written that this is necessary. I recommend to you as a homework all this to study, carefully disassemble and understand. If you understand this, friends, you will become a great guru. Let's go back to our text view. And let's remove all unnecessary. Create a variable with name. Let it be my text view. This is an instance of the UI text view class. Let's see at once this class. So let's start firstly simulator at the same time. Xcode surprised the last time me. We see that it inherits from the UI scroll view. You can trace all these inheritance links. We also see the property, delegate, also all the attributes that we already looked at. You can read all this in the documentation and work it out. Okay, let's delete it and create the most common text view. Set the location of my text view. Make the layout overall screen. And we take self.view. And besides its frame, there are also bounds. Frame is an outer frame. If you take a simulator, that's all this is frame. This is top frame. Here is the origin reference point. The internal coordinate system is view, not relative to UI window, but relative to the view itself. Itself is called bounds. We specify that it should be stretched to the whole bounds. Let it take up all this space. This information is for you to expand your horizons. Now we are doing everything as a training, friends, that we worked as many elements as possible. It has a standard view dot text attribute like all others, and next there's such property content in sets. It specifies where the content will be located in itself. There is such a class. Let's create, then on top here it reads 10, to the left 0, from the bottom 0, and to the right also 0. We give it the font. It inherits from the class UI font. All these we also did. Let's choose the size 16, let's even 17, and add it to the view itself through subview. Add subview. My text view. We all added. Now let's run and see. Here, as in storyboard, it was possible to take and transfer it to the screen. Instead, we write all these elements in order to navigate them well. You see, because we specified top 10, it simply receded. If I had not indicated, it would overshadow everything here and it would be ugly. We click here, the cursor appears. Let's still call the keyboard. The keyboard it cannot be said that it's our enemy, but in this case, because of it, all the problems mostly arise. It would be alright, we created everything and everything was arranged on the screen. Let me even now, for clarity, to see where it is, call the background color, which many have here too, and put a point. We can just write gray, so that we can see where our text view is relative to the view. It will be painted in gray. You see, all this gray is a text view. We press, the keyboard is called, and we begin to write. We write and write, we don't touch anyone. Imagine, friends, if your user starts to write and says everything is a disaster. That means you did something bad, your program doesn't work well, the user is trying to change something, drag something, nothing happens to him. He thinks, I will remove the keyboard, but the keyboard isn't removed. The user is getting sick from your application and he doesn't know what to do with it. As a result, he deletes your application from his phone. Let's see how the most basic problems are solved, how to avoid this altogether. Prior to this, text field had a special delegate method that handled return. In text view this is not. We need to somehow get out of this situation. Of course, you can use different crutches. Also use the delegate method in which a space is caught, and when we press return, our keyboard collapses. In this case, because of this scratch, we will not be able to move to a new line with this button. In principle, to not say much, delegate method will not work. I can just go in again in our UI text view delegate and see that the most basic method here are those that we have met with text field, so I will not repeat. Look at the previous lesson. Basically all the same thing. The names of the methods speak for themselves. You see? Let's just remove it and try to work with notifications. Let's recreate our view. Create it in a different coordinate system to make it easy to work. We assign it to x20 to Y 100. In width we take the view from it. We will take the bounds, which we already talked about. The bounds have width. At this width, since we took on X, we took 20, let's take 50 here. As for height, we will also take a view. It will take bounds and height. Since we don't need to stretch it, our view across the entire screen, we will divide the height by 2. Let's see first what we can do. And we see here we retreated 50. Let's even do exactly that, change it to 20. Let's remove it in the create text view method, as we usually do, because now there will be a lot of code. It will hinder us. Make sure that everything works, because every time we write something, we also always need build, collect the project to make sure that everything worked for us. So, we've created. Let's test it again. We enter some text like this, like this, like this. And see, somewhere it's gone and there's nothing else. Our class has, let's move to the view controller. We have a UI responder. UI responder has gestures processing via touch begin. Let's try to call this method. At the same time, we will work with it, and we write our right, since it already exists. We just redefine it. We write func touch begin. It's called at the first touch. We will say that when you touch the view, we will call resign first responder via self dot my text view dot assign first responder. Let's see. You can do anything here. It reacts to touch to certain specific events. You see how it works? You can use this method. We can even do so that the touch will change the background color. Let's put it here, changing of background color. Specify through your color dot, let it be white. We start again. This method very often helps. We press and see everything turns white. This is a very useful feature. You can also work it out, friends. Now, I suggest to make sure that when we type, we always had an indentation. When we start typing, so that our text doesn't go under the keyboard, but constantly recedes. We see that the keyboard takes up half the screen. We will process notification with you. They have such a dictionary called user info. It contains a dictionary with the coordinates of this keyboard. there is a keyboard outline. It takes a certain number of points, because we have all counted in points. We will take all this layout away and redraw the text view relative to the keyboard. In the last lesson we just raised the view, but here we just redraw. Because we need to train to do this in different ways. In addition, the text view itself will scroll the text itself relative to the cursor. Let's fix it in practice and see what happens. Let's create a method. This method will have the name update text view, and of course it will take a param of type. What type? Of course notification. This one. Let's create user info. Take them, param, and as I said, already have user info. To make sure that this is a type, for example, you don't know this. We select user info and see that's a dictionary. Key and value. How do we get the keyboard outline? We have a question. We are creating a constant get keyboard rect. You can call it whatever you want, and in the brackets take our user info. Since I said that this is our dictionary, we should get value by key. The key is your keyboard. We need its frame and user info key. Also, we need to convert it to a certain type, and it will be NS value. Since this is related to graphics, we write CG rect value. This way we get all the outlines, coordinates and points of this keyboard. Next we need to get its frame. And we write a keyboard frame and take a view. It has a method that we have not worked with yet. It's called convert. We need to translate into cdirect so that we can draw it. Also, friends, please read about it. Take this one here, rect, and view. We take its get keyboard rect and put it on view.window. I'm sorry, view.window, and convert it. Let's say that if in this param the name comes, param.name and sign of equal, write notification.name, your keyboard will hide. We worked it in the last lesson with it. Such a message will come when the keyboard wants to hide. Then we need to take our text view and have it content in set. That method we have set it 0 through UI h insets dot 0. Let's read what this method is. one and the other. We can see that with user distance to which the content is displayed is in the safe area or scrolled. This indicates that the keyboard has already hidden and you can already go to normal mode of operation. And if to us comes any other notification not connected with the keyboard, they different set. We take the same content instant and how in the beginning we created. Let's even take make. Insert make. Here we put 0, here we put just our keyboard frame, which we calculated. Let's copy from it and paste it over there. Okay, from the bottom let's put the size of our keyboard. We will take the height and here we put 0. In order for the cursor to be tracked so that everything scrolls about our content, take scroll indicator in sets and assign it our content. We type scroll indicator in set equal my text to you dot our content in set. Let's read it at the same time. We see this distance from the scrolling indicator depends on the scroll edge. This in general doesn't tell us anything, friends. Let's see how this works. Let's take our text view. And according to our logic, we take the user info key with 1, get the coordinates first, then take the frame, then say if the keyboard is hiding, then put everything back in place. If the keyboard appears, we take into account the height of the keyboard and output the content and cursor to the visible area. Also, there is text view scroll range. Let's write scroll. This is a very long name. Now we also see what it is. Select range. And we see that scrolls the receiver until the text in the specified range is visible. We transmit to it what specifically the selected area of the text. We wrote the method. Since this method will be passed to selector, we write Opt-C in front of it, right before it, as the Swift syntax requires. Let's create our notification here, the last time we created it. Notification center dot default and subscribe. We write our controller. We ourselves specify selector. This will be just this method. A pointer to it. Press twice and write UI keyboard did show. Where is it? This one. when the keyboard is going to display. In addition, the object will have nil, will not transmit anything. Let's create the same. Always will center, and here we will call UI keyboard will hide when the keyboard is going to be removed. Let's start. Let's see first what we have got. And when we press, we start writing something. We write, see that the content is being taken up, that is. We write first alone, then postpone, write and finish writing. Everything here comes back and text view turns white. If you want to edit, pick up where our cursor is referring. Put the cursor here, so this is how it appeared. All edited. If you put the cursor here, then the text is transferred up. Very obedient it would seem. Push, everything returns, you can scroll very comfortably. When we stop, the scroll disappears. In addition, it can round off, change colors, in general, everything that we like. Good. Alternatively, we can program the button to make it out. It's up to you, friends. In principle, you can connect delegates here. You can use notification for the keyboard or for some changes. Everything is similar to the last lesson. It's also created in principle not difficult, the only thing that we have worked with the new drawing. Also practice with it, friends. Work with indentations, like what and where to retrieve. This property is specifically text view. It's not related to constraints, it's such a method. Practice, you can put a breakpoint and try to make the keyboard appears and see how it works. We see the user info, let's see. There are 8 different meanings for this dictionary. Next, we get what we need by the key. We see origin, x0, y315, the size of the keyboard. We see all this. We can pick it all up. All we need is from there. In this case, we have taken the height here. You can see all this. You see that notification didn't go when the keyboard was collapsed. We also flip through and see that it came to us here. You see, we choose height 253. You can also select the other parameters that we like best, specifically under the condition of the problem, friends. In principle, that's all for now, friends. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye. Hello friends, today's topic is UI button. Everyone worked with this simple element. This is the most common button. It would seem that it doesn't even make sense to record a video tutorial on this UI element. Still, we will now try to walk through this class and consider it without missing anything. Let us always go into the hierarchy to consolidate our knowledge. Zoom in it. See where UI button is, and we see it inherits from UI control, which in turn inherits from UI view. UI view inherits from UI responder. This means that there are methods in this class. We can also use some actions at target from UI control. We can also use various methods from UI view. Round this button, apply shadow, etc. This is all we can take from this class. UI responder will provide us with some management methods, for example. Let's move on to the documentation. Google this class UI button. Find it and immediately go to Google Chrome. Go through it, read it, because the documentation is our everything instead of thousands of books. And we see that UI button is control that executes your custom code in response to user interaction. We can now look at the overview. There is a short instruction that when adding a button to your interface, perform the following action. Set the button type and so on. All this you can read here. In addition, you can add buttons to your interface programmatically or use an interface builder. Next is a response to the buttons. Read about add target, about the methods that handle various events, how to customize the appearance. Read about the states of the button. Here it's indicated that there are two basic states, when the button isn't pressed and the state when it has already been passed. Here it's written about the 4 states of the button, which we also need to know. Next comes content. You can assign image, set current title color, its current color, and also you can set background image. You can put on the background also different colors, shades, etc. You can see what attributes it has, also various properties for drawing, shadow, etc. Below in the theme section, here is description of the class itself. This is the creation of buttons, and there must always be some initializer. Here comes the standard initializer. It has an enum. In this enum we can choose a certain amount. Let's see. There are system, there are custom, etc. This info light is an information button that has a light background, etc. With all this you can play. When you have a task, all this can be found here and read on the Apple website. Here you specify the name setting. All you can do is it setting the button view is the display, background, stretching and hue color, all that comes to mind. All these tools gave us Apple. Next is the configuration of nested attachments, inserting or source fields for the rectangle surrounding the entire contents of the button. All that can be assigned to a button, draw it or make it custom, everything is there. Next comes the settings of dimensions. In principle, I think that you have something to understand here. Work it out necessary so that it remains in your memory with the help of practice. Let's Google what SDK is. I recently realized that many people don't know what the SDK is. Let's just Google the iOS SDK and read what it is. I recommend to you, since developers learn constantly. If some questions come, we first of all must Google it, read about it. Something is not clear, Don't just run to a friend and ask questions. First, you need to Google it. Realize it. Understand that no one then misleads you. See? iOS SDK is a set of development tools for iOS released in March 2009 by Apple. Next, we can see that the developers can set any price and so on. But as for SDK, there is its composition, and we can see that Apple iOS uses a variant of the same kernel as Mac OS X. And the SDK is divided into the following sets. We see Cocoa Touch, Multimedia, Source Core, etc. Always should know the iOS developer, or somehow it works specifically with iOS SDK. All that we need in the application is here. All methods, all classes are here. So far we have just passed the syntax. Now we are going through UIKit, and we still have many things that we need to study. Carefully read, understand what the SDK is, look at what classes and methods are available so that you have a view. Because everything we see here is only a small part of this SDK. It's UIKit. It has UI prefix for all classes. Let's move on to the lesson. Create a project. We'll work a little bit in storyboard so that you don't have a situation like this, that you learned how to work in code, but you have big gaps in storyboard and back. You cannot also work on storyboard without understanding what is happening in the code. Let's immediately select simulator, select button, right button. This is a normal element, you can read about it. Let's put it and arrange. Next, create two copies of the buttons. We will write name button 1, button 2, and button 3. Let's stretch them. You see that instead of subject we can do it with the mouse. It's all translated into XML format. Don't panic, we don't need to remember all this, you just have to understand this. We put the buttons. This button we can do such as we want to change the same enum about which I spoke. Buttons are of different types, sometimes they are needed. To change it you need to customize it. It means bring the look of the button in the right kind for us. We see that it has state config, and here there are 4 states here. Okay, and let's start our simulator at the same time and try to see. And we see the first state is when the keys haven't yet pressed the button. This is when they have already pressed. This is when it's off, and this is when it's highlighted. Who needs what states? Next, we can change some color. Let's change this background, make its font bigger. Here are buttons. This is the first normal state. When we did not press it, it's when we clicked, it's a bit dim. Let's change the state for it and let it know that we clicked on it. Let it display 0. Start the simulator. We can also change the background for it at the press button, and this will be for the unpressed one. As you like, you can ask. Pressed and see title 0. Released, return to the previous state. There are 2 button states. It officially has 4 states. Let's remove this inscription. In principle, there are most basic things that we can customize. We can set also shadow offset, play with title, background. Also, we can add some functionality to the code. Let's also show. Here we press this button as I previously showed once, and I can show that we can use action. When we add the code through the code, we use add target. Right click, take this button, and the strip appears as I showed before. Pulse on the code, release, and select this time connection, not outlet but action. This also is outlet collection, but I will show it later. With outlets we worked already. They allowed us to change the usual property. We specify some name. We can choose type UI button. Let's have any. Event touch up inside. There are a lot of them. This works before we hit the button. This is when we remove the finger. This is list for the different events. So far we have touch up inside by default, and that's enough for us. Next is the argument sender. We usually write param as we like. We can write sender. Let's write button action. Create and see how it looks. He tries to create, a little bit pinched. Let's try again. For a long time I talked too much and it hung up. Try again. You see it's created. We see have created IB outlet. We also wanted to make action. We cannot just take it and delete it all, because in storyboard the link will still remain and we will have an error. Many people happen because of these mistakes and they don't understand what is happening. We select with elements, select connection inspector and see that there is a connection here. We delete it and here it becomes an empty circle. We remove this outlet. Now right click again, select action, add the name and create. Now there must be an IB action. This is its second state. We can allow you to create 3 actions, but we will do one. How to do it? We right click and drag it here. We take this button and pull it here 3 times when we need to show all 3 buttons into one event. We have 1 action and 3 buttons. How do we understand that this is button we click it on or this one? Alternatively, let us say how to handle this button so that the logic doesn't work when we process this button. Let's try the first method. We can navigate by title. We create a local constant button. Take the sender that comes here and say that we are interested in the UI button class. And if our button title label title by itself. We don't need, we need its text. If this button has title and its text is button 1, let's write it. If it's exactly that, then let's make print and say in the console, this is the first button. Friends, this is the first option. The second option, if we need to process the third button next, but we don't want, for example, to use a title for us. Apple made another options, many don't know or know, but don't use it. It's a tag. Where can I find it? We select a button, select Attribute Inspector, go down and see the tag. We can, for example, put a value 3. We can assign each tag a tag of 1, 2, 3, etc. We can determine by tag, and we say if we can else put and make back. However, we are setting a new if. This is the second condition. If our button has a tag, type int c, and it's equal to 3. If it's somewhere in this sender will detect when a message comes to us from the button, and this button has a tag of 3, then we understand that this is the third button, and output to the console, this is button 3. Let's see, we will not use the second button, so that we see what works, what we need. As we are professionals in our craft, we do what we need, push the button and see the message that this is the first button. We press the second button, nothing happens, press the third button, in the console the inscription button 3. Let's see how this works out. We will put a breakpoint, always when something is not clear, comes nil, or you want to figure something out, put a breakpoint. Let's try to work in debug mode. We are waiting. We go into this method and see what comes to us in this sender. Something has come. Here's our button. This is here. It's unrest in memory. Next, we look that occurs. Where we get here by the condition, print our condition and exit this method. If we press another button, then we'll get here. When we click on the second button, nothing happens, we exit the method. To remove a breakpoint, we drag it to the code and release it. Friends, there is one more important event when we need to work not with outlet. By the way, it happens when you open the Attribute Inspector to bring outlets, etc. Here you are told internal, and you panic, you cannot understand why you cannot transfer it here. You can click manual, select automatic and choose our controller. Sometimes Xcode cannot open it automatically and we will help it. Nothing wrong with that. If internal is written here, don't drag outlet here. Also click on the view controller, select this tab and always check the connection. You see, 3 buttons are tied to one event. If there are unnecessary links or button here, or you accidentally dragged them 2 times, one was deleted, but it did not seem to have disappeared. All of you will fall, one button should not have 2 actions, just take it and turn it off. Click here, select the arrow and check these links. In order not to be distracted from the topic, outlets and actions we have passed, let's work out the outlet collections. What it is? Pull here with the right mouse button up. I said that actions are located at the bottom. And variables too, outlets and variables at the top. We choose this time not outlet, but outlet collections. This is an ordinary collections. Let's call it my buttons from capital letter. Okay. Click. Here there was var, the name. If to understand, we have created the usual array of buttons with the type UI button. Here everything is clear at a glance. Also choose a second button, right click and pull it here. It doesn't want to be added. Let's try to add it from here. So, to it's possible to make. Who didn't know? We select and we are shown a whole collection of buttons. We can work on tag by name, but the most basic work is done as with the array through for in. We are writing for a button in my buttons, a normal loop. It will go as many times as there are elements in the array. We will have 3 iterations. We say that, let's say we select button. It's for us to get one button and set it to set title color. We'll do it, I don't know, UI color green, and let this color be added only for normal state. To understand what's happening, I say that we'll go through the entire cycle, and to each button that comes here we set the green color for the normal state. This time we didn't change the background, namely title color. This label, now they are all green. You can do absolutely anything that comes to your mind. These are the most basic operations that I wanted to show. Let's disconnect the connection so that it doesn't bother us anymore and go to the code. We must disassemble this element from different angles. In each class we must be professionals. We shouldn't have any gaps in knowledge. It will also affect the interview. An interview very quickly determines that you don't understand a lot. We don't need this. Let us see once again that we have no connection left, so that nothing falls. Let's go into the view controller and let's create an instance of the button class, as we usually do. Let it be my button and UI button. Let's move into this class and look at the content. We went into this class, we see that it's UI button that created by Apple blah blah blah. There is a public enum. This enum is just the look of our buttons. Info, custom, system. Next comes the class itself, which inherits from UI control, performs the NS coding protocol. You can also work and read about it, as it records our elements, saves them to the disk and back. This is already a topic of another lesson. Here go the most basic attributes, which are very well painted by Apple. then go all sorts of methods, and just we looked at the documentation. Next is withdrawing, etc. In principle, this is not difficult class, you can work it all out and everything is done for your creativity. Let's continue creating our button so that we can learn how to create it in code. Let's turn to the UI button class called the initializer. We are interested in type. We call enum, and in this enum we select round rect. Let's still define frame. What it is, I will not explain, we have already passed all this. If something is not clear, read, look at the previous lessons, then everything will be clear to you. Set the location of the button. We are placing our button. Okay. Here we are told that you need to put the bar. Don't be frightened immediately with such messages, read what they want from you. Next, we have created a button, arranged it. Now we need to set the title so that we can distinguish it. It will display the inscription. Let it be press me. For state normal, when we open our application, we see the button in its normal state. It says click on me. Let's set it through the setTitle method. The method description is displayed at the bottom. Set the second state. It will display, let it be I'm pressed. And we will select for state highlighted. This indicates that the button is pressed. Next, we will add action. But before adding it, we will create two methods that we can add without them nowhere. The first one will have the name button is pressed. It will have a sender. There must always be an attribute that we can access it. Inside our method we print the phrase button is pressed. Good. Next, we will have the second method, which has the name button is tapped. I think it's all clear. There is absolutely nothing complicated, friends. This we do testing the functionality. And add button is tapped to print on console. Now let's add the add target button. What it does, we have already been with you. This is a normal action which I showed before only in Xcode. Set the selector, we have already talked about this. The first selector is the button is pressed with one, and event will be, touchdown. Read about all these states, friends, which I previously showed. This is when we press the button, but the finger has not been removed. Next, let's copy this line to save time. Take this method for event touch up inside. When we removed our finger, this is the most popular event. Now add the button to the subview. My button. We added it. Now let's test what we have got. It should create a button somewhere in the center. It's unclear why we had the previous buttons, although we removed them. Let's start the simulator again. Very strange. Xcode surprised me lately. It's turned out that I have not deleted them. It turned out that I'm surprising myself. 95% of our bugs is our carelessness, so double check everything. We see a button in the center with an inscription "Press me" on it. We press it and see it in the console. I'm pressed. Let's go, and it returns to the normal state. We also see that our methods are also working out. Always understandable. Let's work with the images. I recommend to you in this search engine Google and find a couple of pictures. They are PNG format, transparent. Copy them to the assets folder. As I said before, this place for images I have given name 1 and 2 so as not take up your time. This can all be done through the storyboard, but since we do everything in the code, we write the following. Let normal image and refer to the class your image. It has named. Friends, this is the topic of the next lesson. I will write this down, and in the next lesson we will talk about this. In addition, the second image will have such a name. We will give it the name of the file through your image named. 1 and 2, I don't tell them the order of the picture. These are the names, you can name them whatever you like. If you throw them here, you need to specify a format. If they are in assets, just a name is enough. We have created everything. Let's set the text 1 and 2 to understand what and where is located. Also set the site 100 and 100 so that the image is correctly displayed. At the very bottom we will set my button dot set background image and assigned the image normal image to the normal state. As you can see, everything is elementary, just enough practice, work with it and you will remember it forever. If you have a task, you just go to the documentation, then into the class itself, understand and see all its possibilities. Now we set the image for the second state, highlight it. That's all. Let's run the simulator. You can work as you like, you can create all these cycles. In general, everything that comes to your mind, observe only the principles. The architecture and everything will be fine. We have button 100 by 100 inside, click on it and the second one appears. The first second works all as expected. All you want you can do with this button, you can set the shadow to it, etc. You can trim it. Friends, I've been on a big meetup. A colleague from Ray Wenderlich was speaking. he said that very carefully work with shadow and corner radius. The button inherits from UI control and UI control from UI view. Here UI view has a layer that rounds off and which gives a shadow, and he said that this slows down a bit of performance, so be careful. That's all for now, friends. Thank you for your listening. Until next lesson. Goodbye. Hello friends, today we also have an interesting theme, UI image view. Let's move on and look at the hierarchy where we have our UI image view. Let's zoom in it. And we see UI image view we have here. Also we see that UI image view inherits from UI view and UI view inherits from UI responder. Also in this lesson we will talk about UI image. What is this class, where we might visit. Okay, next let's start, guys. Open Xcode, create the project. I suggest to go right to the beginning in the view controller, and let's write UI image view. We will try to go to it. Let's look at it in the documentation on the Apple website and read about it in more detail. Let's open it in Google Chrome. Okay. And we see here it's written that UI image is an object that displays one image or sequence of animated images in your interface. Here you can transfer an array of images. Let's make a bigger window in order to see more. Here is a brief overview. JPEG and PNG files are listed. That it has scaling. We will talk about these two of these, etc. This is all an extension for some format. You can also read how the transparency attribute works. It's also very important to understand that here is a recommendation. If you need an alpha channel or you install shadows, etc. So working with a layer class, then you may have performance problems with the application. Keep this in mind, friends, since in this case there is a dynamic allocation and this loads the graphic processor. Be care about it, I recommend you. Okay, what next? We see that next come animations, different sequences, when we adjust one image after another. Reacting to the touch, we see here UI responders, various interactions, etc. All this we can add here. And next are going tips on how to improve performance, how to work with it, in what situation to redraw. But I also recommend you to read it in more detail. Next comes the debugging of problems with your view or maybe presentation. The view is a view of UI image view, as you remember. I will not reread it in detail, you read it yourself. The only thing that we will see is initialization. Here we pass the usual image, UI image, and below we see initializer. Here I can transfer your image when selecting. The selected image is displayed in the image. With initializer, I simply return the image, which is when we clicked on it. You can also transfer an array of images here, array of UI image objects for animation. You can go ahead and look closely at what and how it works, or just Google about it. Here this method is specified at the start of animation of the image. You can check whether the animation is produced. Where there is an is prefix is a boolean value, it returns a boolean value. We check. If it doesn't work, then we run it. If it works, then turn it off. This is just an example. User interaction inherits from UI view. This indicates that there is a boolean value that determines whether user events are ignored and are removed from the event queue. Buttons and everything else that inherits from UI view can be displayed for interaction with the user, and there will be no problem. In general, read about it carefully. In UI view you also need to go and see what is happening in it. Additional content is also listed at the bottom of the page. What else can you look at? Picker view we passed, progress view and web view will go through the next lesson. There are very interesting and useful views you need to know. Let's move on to the UI image class, which we need to consider so that we had an idea about it, so that we don't work with a fog in our head. We must clearly understand what, how and where it happens and for what it's needed. This is UI image. You should not be confused with the previous class. There are two different classes. This is the object that controls the image data. In your view, you can read the review. You can use image objects in several ways. Next is a section on creating image objects, how to create them through initializers. We can create our UI image view on a middle level thanks to this class. Here's how to expand the image, show how to compare images with each other. You just can compare by checking for nil is equal or a double equal sign. Friends, please read about all these initializers methods. You can also read on Stack Overflow site what you can do with this class and practice, a lot of practice. Let's move to storyboard. According to our old tradition, this class is very simple. It would seem we have a UI image view, and what else you can do with it. But as we can see, there is a lot written in the documentation about it. The more you read, the better this element will work for you. The more elements you work on, the stronger you will have the base. All the elements that you see here, this is the base. Now with all, this is an how-to-write applications. Simple but full application. They need to know not only what they are, but also to be able to work with them in the code and in the storyboard. Let's get down to practice. I have downloaded a MacBook image. You can use anything you like, a condition to make the image large. We will transfer it to Assets, go to the storyboard and select UI image view. It can assign a custom class, set an image, etc. Set size. We are interested in the position of the element. Let's set the constraints. Now we will not go through them in detail, just fix our image in the center. Let's just... Okay, let's just drag about view and hold shift and click on the center of the horizontal and vertical. And also check the aspect ratio. And in the end, add this constraint. Still here we add the necessary constraints. We look that our element is sufficiently fixed on the center. We choose our image view. It has the image attribute. We are interested in this image. There is content mode. Choose from it aspect fit. And it threads inside the container. There is a state like this, you can play with it. If we choose, for example, center, you see it's limited to our view. We want the image to not go beyond the borders. For this we choose clip to bounds and everything that it cuts around. All of these. If we select scale to fill, then we can trim this. Good. We already know that user interaction enabled disables any interactions with the item. By default it's off. Also there is a tag. Let's create the outlet, open assistant and pull for it and not for the constraints. Be sure about it. We check that the type was your image view. Let's call it my image view. And we have created the outlet. Let's take our my image view and take its layer. As I told you before, it has the type CG layer. It's core graphics. We pass into it and see what it is. Before that we were in this class, but your image view wasn't there. It turns out that this is a property of the CL layer class. You can read it too. We'll go through it later. Here you can draw, set different position and anything what you like. In this case we will take border width with 1. This is the width of our outline around image. Next we take my image view, select the layer and I'm sorry, I misled you. Select layer and set the body color with 1. Note, when we set the usual color we have the type color, but here goes CG color. This is just core graphics. This time we need to turn to the class UI color, take blue. But this not be enough, because you need to return CG color. We put the dot and choose it. CG color. In occasion of core graphics, read at this stage, not deeply, but read about it. These are standard libraries with the help of which we work with the graphics in our applications. Let's take our corner radius from our my image view. Layer.corner radius, because someone will not ask, the most important thing is to teach them to round off the corners of the element. Every second question from a beginner is how to round out the images. I'm showing you this. In this my image view we take the property layer, refer to the corner radius and set the value. Now the simulator will be launched, we'll see what happened. Try to understand this as much as possible, friends, because it's such an element with which you will spend most of the work, along with buttons, etc. This is a class that you need to know very, very well. We see that it turned out not very beautiful, unfortunately. Let's do this content mode. I don't want to paint everything beautiful. I want you to understand what opportunities are available and how it looks. We have here body this. Its color is blue. If we set the value to 4, it will be even thicker. Through the corner radius we rounded off the edges of the image, but it didn't end because it went beyond. Let's see its size, and we see it 240 for 187. Because of this, and it turns out ugly. It's necessary that the image was square. Let's make it more, because nothing is visible. Let's put it in the middle and adapt our constraints. Let's see again what we have got. With this you can play, friends, can do round avatars, etc. as you wish. You see, we rounded it, but still it goes beyond the edges. For this we have such a method like clips to bounds. It requires a boolean value, set this to true, and it must return the cropped image around the edges. Everything that goes beyond, as I said earlier, it must cut all this. We see the result on the screen. This is what can be shown about the work with the image. Let's remove the connection so that there are no problems. Delete everything and go to the code from the storyboard. Let's try something else, because there are different tasks, even for freelance. Customers want it to be done through code. It occurs very often. Let's once again create my image view. In its class UIMageView, initialize it. We put here var create a MacBook image. Friends, good practice. If it's image view, then put it at the end of the name. If it's the image class, then add the word image. That in the code it was clear what type this element is. We already passed it. This class has name. It requires a string. Let's type 2. It's just our image. Next, let's create our image view. Turn to this class and initialize it. Take the image and give it our constant MacBook image. Now put it in the center of the view. Center. Okay. Now take view dot add subview and edit. Now run the simulator. The lesson is not very big. Something it wants from us. Strange bug. It all started, but writes a bug. By default, we created image view, added image to it. We can set the array of images to even transfer. Next, we took the initializer and indicated that placing our image on the center is as large as it is. It can be very large. We don't fit this size. No application now looks like this. What do we do? Let's try using the initializer with frame. Specify the height, width, etc. until we remove this initializer. Let's delete it. Choose this time not image, but frame. Direct we will not use because we already know it. We take bounds, which also returns direct. Bounds we take exactly view. You should know that this is a coordinate system. If you don't know, then see the previous lessons. Since we need to transfer the image, take the image from this container and give it the MacBook image. Let's try to run. We press Command R. We wait. We see we stretched all that we have on the internal coordinates of the view, but this option also doesn't suit us. Okay. Let's try to adjust the size. Select My Image View. It has the content mode. Content mode, we can immediately see what it is. This is your view content mode. Put the dot and choose from the list. These are options how to stage our image. Let's try to start with the most basic things. There is a scale to fit. This option allows you to scale the image, completely fill our container image. In my work, I use it very often. And next, this will stretch in the center. This one will redraw. This is up, this is down, etc. You can play with it. Let's put first to put these options and see if these options is suitable for us. Let's wait for it. In general, nothing has changed. Let's try another option. Choose Scale Aspect Fit. This option suits us. To study in more detail, hold Option, as always. And let's read what it means. Let's open it one again. We see that this is the option to scale the content to fit the size of the view by maintaining the aspect ratio. What a view! This is the size of the image. Any remaining R of the views bound is a transparent. Also, here you can call layer corner radius, etc. Set it to 50 and set clips to bound to value through. The effect will be the same. I think we can end the most basic things I showed you for beginners. How to round off, how to work with clips to bounds, how to create different borders, etc. This is enough to create a simple application. All the rest are non-standard things. In official documentation, this is not. You will have to figure out whether it's Google it or look at the forums, etc. That's all for now, friends. Thank you for your attention. Until next lesson. Goodbye. Hello friends, today's topic is UI scroll view. Let's look at our UI key table. We will see our UI scroll view selected. We see that it inherits from UI view and it in turn inherits from UI responder. It would seem that in this class can be all met the scroll, you can scroll the row, table, etc. What can be interesting here? Let me try to refute this. I will show you the small features of this class and I'll try to prove that this is a useful topic. You see that UI scroll view inherits UI text view. We have already passed it, and UI table view, we will cover it in the next lessons. Let's create a new project. Call it UI scroll view. Let's move on to the storyboard and choose scroll view in storyboard. We can read what it is. We will place it on the screen. We can fix it by constraints also, right here. And we see that everything has turned blue. We can put UI image view on it, put it in the center. Friends, I have prepared 3 images for us. One iPad, one iPhone and one MacBook. You can use your images. The only condition is that the size should be larger than application screen. Let's move on and select an image. Let's choose an iPhone. Let's make it even. With one. In principle, with scroll view itself, we can see that it has indicators. These are just side-scrolling elements. We can choose either black or white, color for scroll bar. And we can somehow turn off by default, it's true. We can disable scrolling itself. Paging is for paging. Enable or disable zoom. Keyboard, we can make a dismiss during drag and drop when you took it and drag it during with the keyboard heights. By default it's dismiss. All the main thing is from your view. I will not list all this list. I ask you to see for yourself in previous lessons. In storyboard we quickly arrange it and try to work with it, but still our main work will be in the code. We don't program a mouse in life. Let's see what happens under the hood. Let's delete it all. Let's move on to the view controller. We remove all unnecessary from it. And let's create a scroll view class immediately. We call it via var my scroll view. So where there is a word view, this indicates that there's some kind of view representation. Let's get to the class right away. We see that there are some properties that return CG point, CG size. This we have already worked. This is illustration of the content, etc. All this we will see in the documentation. It would seem that this class compared with UMH view should be even smaller. See how much everything in it. It's such a parent subclass in which all the main magic happens, thanks to which the content is placed on the screen. We must understand that all the things that Apple invented are made in order to solve some problems. The screen is much smaller. We need to post information to put it. For this purpose, Apple invented scroll view. It has a delegate method. At the same time, I will show you that you can work with gestures. No, now don't go into it. There is a scroll view delegate. You see how many methods it has. I think that for such a class is very much. Let's make it according to the standard. Go into the documentation and see, because everyone is confused. Without documentation, I generally don't recommend working with anything. If you work with classes and haven't read about them in the documentation, you will have very large gaps, and this will immediately be reflected in the interview. I assure you, this is immediately felt. We see the scroll view. This is a view that allows you to scroll and scale your hidden views. Hidden, this is what is not in our view. We can scroll some hidden things. For example, the image doesn't fit into the screen. Scroll and see what is there. We see that your scroll view is a superclass of several classes, including your table view and your text view. It's mandatory to read. Here it's written that from where and where it goes, thanks to what method that works. The delegates method are described a little to influence something. Attached to the manual, they say that there is a delegate, what I said, the delegates methods. Next come the control of the size and the content shift, just for its properties and methods. Controlling the behavior of content insertion, we can insert, size, adjust content, etc. Thanks to this, we can create our own label, our element. Now we see getting manuals for the layout. It gets a layout, lines, sketches. Set the type of scrolling. There are flags here. A flag is a boolean value. If someone doesn't know, it helps us to regulate some things. The first example is a boolean value that determines whether scrolling is enabled. This flag will help us. It's on, then do it. It's disabled, do something else. Next comes the scrolling status. It indicates what is happening now. It's tracking returns whether the user touches the content to start scrolling or not. The following is a boolean value that indicates whether the user started scrolling the content. It's all very simple, and here you can find everything you need. Control the scroll indicator and update what you can update there. Scrolling to specific location, we can see where to scroll. Also, we have touch control, which is just related to gestures. For example, if you take this method, it returns if you want to undo the touches associated with the subordinate content and start dragging. Or touch should begin. This works at the first touch. Reading by subclasses to configure the default behavior when the finger touches the displayed content, etc. Instead of you, I will not read all this. Please read about gestures, zooms. There are a lot of different things that you can use. Also look from whom it inherits. Read also view containers that are still here. Okay. I will show you this is created in the code. Once again, we write var, since we will change the variable, create my image view, also a container. We did this in the previous lesson. Created a scroll view, created image view. Now let's create let an image to load. This will be a property, and put an image called Mac. Into it, paste our image. Next we take my image view, and it needs to transfer this photo to the container which we received. We call the image view class, take the initializer with image, because we are not interested yet. Now take the scroll view, and we should place it on the screen. In this way we specify let it be located throughout the view. Take the scroll view. Since it inherits from your view, it also has add subview. Add to it image. In this way we created a scroll, created an image, paste it in an image view, all is combined, and added all to the view. Good. Now at image we'll create content size. Rather take not the content mode, but take my scroll view, and it has content size. This is the size of the content that will be on it. Just this image there and range. We will arrange the image completely in size. Now take the view and add our scroll view to it via add subview method. Let's run the simulator, and while it starts, run through. We create a scroll view, created an image view, created a single image, then we transfer the image to it, took the scroll view and stretch it around the view. Next, on the scroll view, added the image view. Then we took content size from scroll view and specified that our image is by its size and added to our view, all. Go through it yourself. Nothing complicated, friends, in this. Let's see what we have got. We have a very large image that doesn't fit on the screen in our application. What's going on? I made a mistake here. We need a scroll view to add to the view. And we see that this is our view. It has a scroll view and it contains the content with the image. We can move everything, we can watch what and where it moves. Everything looks exactly this way. Let's now try to work with delegate methods. We take the US scroll view delegate, add the delegate. We definitely need to subscribe to this delegate. In this way, we have to take our my scroll view. It has delegate and take self. I suggest that this be removed into the method. Call it create scroll view. Create scroll view. Put everything in our method. And of course call it in view did load. Our method creates scroll view. Next, let's take a delegate, write mark, so that nothing hinders us. We will call the first method, which is of interest to us. All of them I will not consider because it's very long. Consider the most common. Takes the scroll view did scroll, one of the popular ones, and create some string in it. Put it there. Scrolling begins in this constant. So that we know at the moment it happens. Now we'll bring it all to the console via print. Often programmers use this method, scroll view, content offset. It passes CG point and we can take some coordinates from it on Y. Let's make it so that our scroll view alpha is transparent. Alpha is opacity. When we start the scroll, our scroll view becomes transparent. Let's create another method, scroll view did and decelerating. This one. This method is called after scrolling. We create a string in it with the inscription. It's called after scrolling. Let's type it there. And on the next line, print it. Here we take our my scroll view alpha and set it to 1. Its alpha can be in the range from 0 to 1. Let's take one more method of the delegate. has name scroll view did end dragging with 1. The state after the drag is finished. We create in a line and write, let it be, it guarantees that it will return alpha to 1 value. Just in case suddenly our user will not scroll and will never return alpha to the 1. In this method we will ensure ourselves, and with alpha I recommend not to indulge, friends. As I said in the last lesson, this affects performance. Never mind that this is a ban, but keep it in your mind. Let's run and see. We see the image is initially transparent. Drag it, drop it. The image gets alpha 1. Let's see what we have got. Just output content offset. It shows how many points on Y we moved. There are such cases when take content offset, fix it to some constraint and start to move up or down, and the view narrows or increases depending on the type of scrolling. It's used by the parameter, this parameter. It's in the tables. The tables inherit from scroll view. We too can use them there. I take and write that the scrolling starts. I start scrolling, release, and is called after the scrolling method. See? And our alpha becomes 1. If you started and abruptly dropped, here we see what was displayed in the console. It guarantees that the alpha will return 1. We did a drag but didn't scroll and called this method and assigned it alpha 1. This is, for example, don't judge strictly. I wanted to show friends that there are delegates methods, how it's created programmatically. Also, you can scroll view to put some indicators, which I already have mentioned above. Make them white. Let's see what happened. You see, the indicator has become a different color, lighter. For those to whom it was not very interesting, who knows everything, I will give you a small bonus. Let's delete this all, and it will be useful for everyone else to understand why this is so. What is this class? We'll try to create something. Let's add 3 images to the scroll view at the same time. Last time we added 1, this time will be 3. We will create a universal method that will position our image, automatically accept the parameters. This will be our universal function. Let's start. Let's create this function and call it new image view this image. We pass the first param of type UI image and the second will be param frame. We definitely need to know where to place our image. Its type will be cDirect. Our method will return us a UI image view. The whole container is ready. It will take an image, parameters, where to place it, and return image view. That's great, is not it? Let's create the result of what we will get. Create the container already inside method, not outside. Take it frame. Since the function is universal, we take that frame that will come from this parameter, we add here. Next, we take the result dot content mode and say that it will be scale aspect fit, so that we have a nice neat image. Since this image view has its image, all the image that will come here will be assigned to the internal container with one. In the end, return it via return result. If you take the necessary parameters and all that we have, we put it in the result and send here. But this is returned somewhere, for example, on the screen. Okay, I explained that you were not lost, friends. Didn't say that everything is so complicated, work it out. All the previous knowledge will be enough for you. Let's now create 3 images. The first will be iPhone image is capital letter. Take your image and initializer, it's given named the name of our image, iPhone. It's the name of our picture. To save your time, copy and paste, and once again. Here let's name the iPad. And on the next line let's type MacBook. And give the name of picture Mac. We created a universal function. It can be copied and pasted into any other method, into any other project, and it will be still universal. It's not tied to any hardcode specific project, image, etc. We are striving for this. We created a scroll view, 3 images. Now let's create a scroll view rect, so that we take samples from it. Scroll view rect. We take, we assign it the same parameters as the view bounds. It will be the same. Add a comment, create, scroll. On the next line, create a scroll. Set the necessary parameters, the name my scroll view, call the initializer, and we take from it the frame and say that it's the same size as the bounds of our view. Switch it around the screen as we have done. There is such a parameter is paging enabled. Let's set it to false. I will explain to you what it is later. For content size, we specify the size of the content that will be placed in our scroll view. Take this one initializer. It has height and width. Take a scroll view rect. It has size and width. We say what our content will have this. Since one image occupied one screen, this would be enough. And if we have 3 images, then we multiply by 3. Next, we take a scroll view rect. We take also size and height. Good. All this should be added to the view. In this way, we write self, view, add subview, and specify in attributes my scroll view. Next, we have the task of creating an image view for all 3 images. For this, you need to create 3 containers. You can do this separately in method. Let it be an addition task for you, friends. We will take image view rect and take self view bounds. We will start drawing from it. Let create constant an iPhone image view and take our universal method and create an image. We will send iPhone image to it. It is necessary to do force unwrap because it's optional. There may be an image, maybe not. Make it checking on value. It will not do it yet. This is for you. We will pass into it an image view rect to stretch it all over the size. Okay. Now take my scroll view and add iPhone image view to it. This one. It will just return this variable here. Let's make it let and add a comment above. Create iPhone. We created an image for the iPhone. Next, we'll do next page. Next, we'll have an iPad. We need to flip this image over the swipe. For this purpose, we take image view rect. It has origin. This is the topmost corner of X. And add image view rect dot size dot width. Thus, we carry it sideways. We create an iPad image view. Take the universal method that we created, put inside iPad image, do unwrap. We take image view rect and place it on frame. Next, let's add it to my scroll view via self, my scroll view, add subview. and specify attribute iPad image view. Friends, if this seems complicated to you, repeat this once more, work it out, all your doubts will go away. Since I said that there will be 3 images, we will create a third one. For this we take image view rect origin X and do the same. Assign image view rect size width. Next create a constant MacBook image view. Good. And again call the universal function. Let's assign the necessary parameters. Done. Now add it to my scroll view using known to us add subview method. Specify MacBook view image view. Let's try to start and see what we have got. This is one of the options for implementation of the scroll view and how to use it. There are lots of options, and in the end we don't see anything. Let's check how we called our images. There is Mac, iPad, iPhone. Oh, as we see, I wrote with an error. As I said, when we put an exclamation mark, we might not have an image and everything will fall. Don't put an exclamation mark. You see, the value of nil is here, don't understand what the problem is. Doesn't work where the iPhone is. Look at the name. How did I write? With an error. I missed the letter H. Run it again. It may be better than this is how it all happened. Very informative for you and for me. We created 3 images that are on the same scroll view. See? Let's stretch the simulator so you can see better. Next, we cannot scroll. We can add the zoom function, etc. How to make it so that you can flip through, as if this page and there is a feeling that the page is flipping. Well, is a parameter that many don't know is paging enabled is set to true. For this we don't need to create additional collection view or use additional methods. It's enough to work with scroll view. Look, I changed the flag here. Now the images are scrolled like photos in the album. Approximately the sample principle works UI page view controller. This is a controller that doesn't apply to custom things that we just came up with. Have thoughts of the small element. Play with it, repeat the lesson, come up with your own functionality, friends. Read the documentation, of course. Also, don't forget to remove the use of forms on wrap, make a check on nil or make optional binding, and don't allow such moments as I have now. That's all for now. Thank you for your listening. Goodbye, friends. Hello friends, today's topic is UI Web View. Let's immediately look at the hierarchy on your web view, where it's located. It's necessary to remember that it also inherits from UI view, then GUI's UI responder and NS object. Also, we'll cover a couple of methods for your application, and when refactoring, we will work out such a small class of UI activity indicator view. Let's open the documentation. We see that it's a view that embeds web content into your application. It's assembled on the basis of WebKit, from which all mini browsers go. In it, everything is hewn under the hood. We were given certain methods, and we see a delegate method. There are certain methods that are used for loading, for reloading pages, etc. So that we don't invent a bicycle, don't make your browser. Invented such a class UI web view. You read with all, look at all these little things. The only thing I will show you is that there is content downloading. We will work with it a little. Let's analyze the way of loading PDF, and also try to work with moving back and forth, adjust some properties. With JavaScript we will not work, because this is a lesson for beginners. This should not be affected now. Here we'll return at the end of our lesson. Let's move on to the project itself. I have already created a project called UI Web View. This time we will go directly to the storyboard from here and start out work. We will all create in the code. There is no point just now showing up here and doing the same thing. Let's select web view. Note that it says deprecated. I will tell about this at the end of the lesson, what to do about it. Let's move on to the controller. It's important for us now that we acquire the basic knowledge, since we start from scratch. You see, there was a strip here. This is just status bar. It's reserved so that we don't not obscure status bar. Good. Next, click on this button. Position the constraints so it's everywhere. Say the web view will be displayed at the edges of our view. Click to add 4 constraints. We see that we don't have any orange and red stripes, only blue ones. So there were no problems with constraints. In addition to web view, we also get acquainted with such an element as the toolbar. Let's choose it. It looks like it, and drag it to the bottom of our screen. You can customize it, add items to it. We have already passed bar button items, you know about it, and we will now work with these elements. Let's paint our toolbar, make it red. You can make it to your taste, friends, as you like. Here I will make it so it differs from the background of red. Let it be white. In a quick way, let's decorate its look. We make a symbol as of a browser. It will have a controller, and here is a small controller panel for this content. also add one more button. This time copy and drag it here. And there is another button, and send it to the other side. It will be for us to rearrange the content back and forth. Also, let's use the fixed space bar button item tool. We will put it here. It will move this button a little. Also, let's choose this tool. This tool will add more distance than the previous one, and it will push to the very end. We put bar button item, and it push it to the very end. What's going on? Something wrong. The new Xcode begins to be capricious, I see. You see what problem there. Let's finish and try again. We will not give up so early, friends. It happens, but we are not upset. We are out of stock. Let's repeat what happened. I'm sorry. We'll fix this quickly now. Repetition will help us in the case. Add this item again. Add it down. Okay. Put it there. Let it be red color. Select the item and make the button back. We will add 3 buttons at once. Okay. And one button will be unfold. I now use the usual system buttons. Let's put refresh, and we extend these buttons. Okay, let's put it there. It turned out very nicely, friends. Okay, there are times when WebView is most often used. For example, there is a controller. It has a link. We click on this link, and by default the link takes us to the external Safari browser. Let's say we don't want to go into Safari. We want to create your own mini browser, customize it, add beautiful elements. In this case, it has open URL method is used. When opening the URL, we can open our mini browser and display the content in it. Either a local page or a global download, etc. Okay, what next? Let's move on to the code. Delete all these comments. Let's drag the web view, call it web view. Let's make 2 more outlets. The first is go back item. This is a button that returns the content back. This is will be go forward item. It's for forward. Connect. Write the item to avoid confusion with the usual button. Next, create an action below. Create mark. We have to make more practice. Only after practice do knowledge come to us. The first action will be, let it be action, and the name is go back action. Click connect. And the second is go forward action, it's also action, connect. Friends, before that, we created a target. Here we'll create action. This action is called refresh action. It's also action as previous ones. And let it be refresh action name. Click connect. And we see we have created everything. Now we will move to the controller. We created 3 outlets to access to our properties. WebView, go back and go forward. Let's look at the WebView class, see what's there. There is scroll view, load HTML, and just load. Through this we can download our content. Then stop download, reload. This is forward and backward. It's flag to check whether we can back or forth. This is very interesting and flexible class, guys. Also, there are methods. We see delegates, but about this a little bit later. Let's get down to the most important thing. How can we send content to WebView? Let's start with the task in advance. We have a WebView. We will learn to think. WebView has some kind of load. And we see load HTML. Who doesn't know it's some kind of page? Also, we can make a load request. And who doesn't know? This is a normal query. In order to get some answer, we must make a request. This is for those who don't know about this. We need to create it and send it here. Let's try to create it. And let it be constant request. There is such class URL request. It has 2 initializers. And we choose the first one, usual initializer. Next, let's create let my URL. Take the URL class and call the initializer again. This time we call the initializer with a single line and nothing more. Where do we take this line, we think? We take the address from the browser, let it be google.ru, copy it, paste. We take our URL, put it there, and transfer it here. It's not necessary to do anything more. The only thing that it says is that the answer can come or not come to us. We see that value is optional. This is not a mistake. It says that one must either do unwrap or put protection in the code. In this case, let's make optional binding put if, so if it's not nil, then some data will be passed here. If nothing comes here, then the condition doesn't work. This is called optional binding. You know it from the previous lessons. Let's start our simulator. Let it be iPhone 5s, let it run. Let's see what we have got. Friends, this lesson is not difficult, but we need to understand it all. We don't need to know this by heart, we need to be able to think logically, take and write all this from memory, so programmers don't work. We are waiting for the download of the simulator. Okay. And in the end, we see our browser and we see the Google page. And we can search for something, we can skip it. Our buttons will work, but we have not programmed anything here. We would like to see so much. And we first program a button that will help us to go back. If WebView dot it has such method can go back, means we tell WebView that when you click this button, you need to go back. Good. If this condition doesn't work out, then we will not go back anywhere. So there are no mistakes. We must write this code securely. If we can go forward, then we move forward if you can. Let's do it with go forward. Okay. Here we will indicate that we can do reload. In this case, we reload the page. Nothing terrible will happen. Firstly, let's check. We see nothing works. The reload is working. Let's call the keyboard through command key and write something. My. Somewhere we went. Let's try to go back. They returned back. Let's go back forward. Everything is working. The reload is working too. Let's work with the delegates. If you want to upgrade the web view, everything is beautiful, but something is missing. It's unclear when to press forward, when back. Since we know that the delegates method, they make life easy for us. We write web view delegate, also go into it, and at the bottom of this class there are several methods. And this is triggered when the download starts. It will decide whether to resolve the URL start download, and fail with the error. We don't need anything else. Let's put the mark for this web view delegate. Let's copy and paste there. And let's create delegate right there. We write web view did start load. This is the first method. Okay. The second one is called web view did finish load with one. And the third method we had was the web view. Let's type it. Good. By default we return true. This is a very useful method. When it came in handy, you can track the links that come to us through it. You know, friends, I had a task to open some kind of URLs inside the menu browser web view, some links depending on the schema. I broke it all into pieces and took the most basic things. Track it and send something to Safari. Opening something in the internal web view, a very useful method, really very useful method it is. Let's print out the request that is here. Also print this method, add to it request. When the download is in progress, we will take the outlets that at the top and say that the go back is enabled, button is false. This indicates that we turn off the button when the download starts, so that no one can press it. Here to put false. Okay. When the download is finished, this method will work. If the view can go back, we will turn on the button to go back. Okay. Let's put self. Go back item is enabled equal true. And add one more else if condition. This is condition number 2. If it can go forward, then go forward item is enabled is true. There is nothing complicated, the simplest logic. We just need practice and understand how this works. Let's run it. Oops, stop. Since this is delegate, we need to say that web view delegate will be executed by this controller. Otherwise, we will not see anything. Guys, please work it out. Go to this class and see what's in it. Also look in the documentation, of course. Everything is inactive here, you see. Let's write the query and see that the go back button is active. Click it. It is inactive, but the forward button is now active. Our program now has some logic. Friends, I will show you one trick. It can be very useful to you. This topic is very useful. We can take myurl.port. Let's go and see the class. And we see that it has schema, base URL, absolute URL, port, host, user. It's all related to the breakdown of the URL. We can see this now. Also take myurl.user. Next, let's take schema. That's enough. And let's try to print, of course. We are informed that Neil can come here. And we look in the console. Okay, we see that port is equal to nil, user is equal to nil, schema equal HTTPS, etc. Always can be viewed. Next, I will show you how, thanks to this browser, I had tasks when I needed to display PDF. We know that in addition to the web browser, it can display documents like Excel, PDF, etc. Let's see how this is done. This is now very popular. For this, I have uploaded a PDF file. I'm sorry. You can download any PDF as you wish, drag it here, select target and copy check. If you put a tick, it's copied into the project. If not put, then only a link to this document is created. In order to get some URL, let's create a string. For this, we don't need this URL. In order to display the PDF file, we need to specify this file. This file is in our project. There is such a thing called the bundle. By default, its name is main, and we can create as many as we like, but by default it's main. Let's delete all this and this one. Let's create a path. I will name it URL PDF. We are referring to bundle.main, and since we are waiting for the path, we write the URL and select the initializer when you can enter the name and extension. We will write VC and extension PDF. Also do optional binding. If you don't know what it is, see the lesson about optional. We pass URL PDF to it and we can get the result. Let's run simulator and see what we have. Also, in WebView there is such a method, scales page to fit. We set it true. It will customize the content to display everything on the screen. We are waiting for the download of the application. Let's wait for it. Okay. We have uploaded our PDF file. If there were any reference here, you would go forward or back. Refresh works. This everything is clear. You see, we have a UI application. I have created it here. It has a singleton shared. It has everything we need shared, delegate. This is open URL. To open any URL, we are interested in the system indicator at that moment. Where it is? Where it is? Oh, here it is. Is network activity indicator visible? We get access to it via application and take the application and call it and set it to true. When the download begins, make true. When it ends, put false. This indicator will be right here. Okay, wait for it. Now it's initialized and there will be a download. Let's do a small refactoring. Let's add useful methods. To do this, go back to our Google. Let's make my URL. Return it as it was. What's happening? What's going on? Okay. I apologize, friends. Xcode today surprised me, but it's normal. We will return everything back. Let's add here some activity indicator. There is such an element. Read about it, and we will place it in the center. Next, drag and drop, shift with the right button on the web view, and select center horizontally and center vertically, and add constraints. Also update constraints. Next, run the simulator. Okay, let's create a mark method to handle all these events. We see that the download indicator has appeared. We see it, it turns, nothing happens, it doesn't work now. In order for it to work, we need to create it as an outlet, and we write activity indicator. Next, go into code and not write everything here. We will make a universal method which will be told to animate or not. Okay, let's start. We create the method is work indicator. For attribute, we write is animated. This will be a flag for us that will indicate whether to animate or not. Indicator will be of this class. We create a method that we can add to any other project and it will work. If it doesn't accept the indicator, then we will tie directly to it with instance, and in the project it will have to be corrected. And so we have a universal method. We take our application, singleton, and take its flag and say that it will change depending on what comes here. Next, we say that if is animated, such an entry is equal to such a record. This is for those who don't know. We are writing a shortened version. Next, we write our indicator and call the method that starts the animation. Next, if it's hidden suddenly, then we display it differently. If the animation is over, then our indicator should stop and also hide. Let's set it to true. There is nothing complicated here. All this can be copied to another class or project and it will work. We'll do this. Without mark we will not be able to press it further among the large code. It helps us a lot. Let's tell it to run the animation for the activity indicator, and here we say stop the animation. Try and practice, it's not so difficult. You just need a little more time. Look how much we wrote. You can improve the code to infinity, but now we need to stop at this. We see that the indicator started, the download started, and at the top it was upload finished. We write a query, then next went to the search and load began, and our button was turned on. Go forward or back, everything is working well for us. Let's return the deleted content size adjustment string. Let's see how it works with it. Friends, all these methods can be looked by you in the documentation for any case. You can make a browser, documents viewer, and all that you need. Guys, I said in the beginning that the web view is deprecated. I want to give you a homework assignment. If you read the documentation, it will say us, where is it? On this. It says why it's deprecated. Because since iOS 8 we have to use W-key web view to add web content to our application, and we don't have to use UI web view. This is your homework. Do everything the same as in this lesson, only with the help of W-key web view. It will be for your practice. The methods they have are similar. I strongly recommend that you practice. There is even a sample of how to use it. This code are all the same. The same URL request load is more advanced in browser. It works differently with JavaScript. Read what the user agent is. It can work with it. In my task I had to work with it. Okay guys, one more. If you don't want to bother create any browsers, but want to have a browser inside your application, Apple has created a Safe Safari View Controller. And this is a full-fledged Safari, which can be minimally customized, but it's ready for use. And connect it is not difficult, it's very small. But remember that if you don't want to bother, use this controller. This is your homework. Use W-key web view. Do everything the same as I did. You can also repeat everything. You can also add something from yourself, somehow decorate the interface, add more tools, or something else. That's all for now. Thank you for your listening. Goodbye.